It's Thursday and the weekend is around the corner, so that means it's use it or lose it time. And this week you've got the added bonus of the Aussie rugby launching, and I've got my prestigious guest from New Zealand as always joining me in studio. Guys, I went a terrific 2 from 2 in Super Brew, and yet I still lost ground. So unbelievably, I don't know what's going on. I'm having a nightmare, and it was a bloodbath on the betting front as well. I think you guys were much closer than me in terms of how easily or how comfortably the guys got the job done. Steve, your thoughts on this past weekend and what you saw there?
We saw a lot of heart from the boys. We saw a lot of passion. We've seen, I think, another good round of Super Rugby Aotearoa. I mean, we've talked a lot about it in the last few weeks, haven't we, about the laws and the rules and the way they refereed and things like that. But I mean, this competition continues to deliver in a way that is rewarding to watch, isn't it? So it's good to watch. I think the players are starting to adapt to everything as well. The result sadly didn't go the way on the Saturday night as we would have liked. But I mean, it's good competitive rugby. And I think we learned over this weekend as a whole, generally over the two matches, is that anyone on their day can beat anyone. And we've seen pretty much just about we could have had very easily two pretty big upsets over the last round. So it's great competition, always getting more and more fun to watch and enticing because it's so close and tight. It's edgy seat stuff, which is great.
No, definitely. I think that's been the big surprise almost. On the one hand, you'd expect it, but on the other hand, it's been incredible how it's gone down to the last minute. Paul, from your side, obviously the Blues have come out early as one of the leaders of the pack, yet it looked a little bit of a struggle there towards the end. Do you think it was just everyone's underestimating the Highlanders a bit, or the Blues maybe not quite as great as we think?
The Blues not as great as we think. How dare you, sir? How dare you? No, damn you ruined it. I was going to say, Stephen, it's been so long ago, I've forgotten what happened. Stephen, please remind me what the score was on Saturday. I've had to grab my notes. Just one page for the Saturday's game. Look, yeah, it was closer than we thought. Well done to the Highlanders. I think both Highlanders and the Chiefs showed a lot of grit, didn't they, to stay in these games, which I think has been the sort of the hallmark of these games. Is lots of grit and determination to stay in the games, which has been cool. Which means they've all come down to being pretty much within a score. Well, they both were this weekend, weren't they? We had that drop goal win in the first weekend. So look, it's been lots of tight games, lots of excitement. It's all been really kind of good. We don't have to put up with any sort of boring South African rugby either. It's brilliant.
Oh, there we go. Shots fired. Shots fired. Straight on to Cornflake, obviously, as we're pretty much done with driving more for the rest of the show. From your side, there, just looking at the Crusaders, same kind of question. I think everyone expected them to put the rather hapless Chiefs team away this weekend, and yet the Chiefs obviously dug deep, as Paul said, and came with a bit of a fight. But was it a little bit disappointing showing from the Crusaders, or you think it's just the case of it's always going to be this tight kind of affair in every game?
Well, I think Paul's weather from the Saturday night's expectation kind of gravitated down from Auckland to Canterbury over that 24-hour period, and all the weather just kind of accumulated there. So the weather had a big part to play in that game. I think both sides, for a large period of that game, didn't really adapt and play the best rugby for those kind of conditions. I think, especially the Chiefs tried to force a lot and too much, tried to play back-running rugby. The Crusaders, I think they adapted a bit quicker, but I mean, it wasn't the conditions for a 7-try romp, was it? It was the conditions for nailing down, playing territory rugby, taking any sort of opportunity you can, and feeding off mistakes from your opposition, which is exactly what the Crusaders do, and that's exactly how they scored both of their tries. It was errors from the Chiefs in one way or another, falling asleep for the second try. So that's this Crusaders rugby. Yeah, it looked a lot closer, but they played generally a better game. But that just shows how close this competition is. A team like the Chiefs played completely wrong sort of type of rugby. They were outplayed in more ways than one, yet they still did enough to stay within that game. That a moment of brilliance from someone, an X-Factor player, could have completely changed that result and put it on its head. So yeah, I think Crusaders would have learned a lot from that game, but I expect we're going to see more matches like that with the wet weather. But it was still good to see that they did use the backs and tried to give some entertainment to the drenched few fans that were in the crowd.
The Crusaders just aren't their slick selves, are they? They've let the Hurricanes come back in. Sure, they scored 2 tries towards the end there. They've let the Chiefs come back in. They're not the ruthless side that we kind of think of them as being from the past 3 years. So I think they're still a damn good side. Let's be honest. But I just think they're not clicking and as ruthless as we know they can be yet.
But the thing is, that game, when the pressure come on at the end, when they got within that 5 points or 4 points, whatever it was at the end, they did get that, oh, well, we're in a game. And they do have that ability when they need to step it up. And defensively, you saw they're a lot more, a lot more impactful, a lot more rushed. And they could tell they were trying to raise the pressure against their opposition. So I think maybe they're playing a little bit of within themselves, potentially. But, they can certainly be a lot better. We know that.
I think Steve said it last week as well, where it's almost like they take their foot off the pedal a bit, and when they see it gets closer, they've still got that 5th gear. So it's almost like they cruising along a little bit in 4th and only use 5th when needed. So the big question is, I don't think they're going to need 5th this weekend, but are they going to use it, Paul? This could be as the NRL guys could say a get right game for the Crusaders. Are they finally going to hit the afterburners? We've seen some changes. I think Scott Robertson is a bit telling the guys, listen, he wants a bit of an improvement there with some of the changes. Obviously, Avili is back, and he's decided to move Siva Rees to the bench, which is quite interesting. So I think it's a little bit of a shake up from him there. And do you see it having the required effect?
I wasn't sure whether it was that or whether he's just rotating and resting players now, and perhaps he's taking the Highlanders a bit for granted with this, because you've got
wouldn't be the first time someone did that, eh?
I mean, it's they've announced the side and you say 5 changes in the starting lineup. They're not being helped by injuries either. With I've gone blank. Callum Grace undergoing surgery, and we've been talking about him, and he's been playing fantastically so far. But he's undergone surgery, which obviously hasn't helped. So Ethan Blackadder comes in, not a bad replacement. Tom Christie, isn't Tom Christie an ex-under-20s captain? I think so. Again, another not bad replacement in the Lucies. You've got to say that there is rotation, but look, they're bringing quality in as well. I'm concerned that they're not that they are taking the foot off the throat, which they wouldn't have done previously. I think he's rotating players, knowing that look, it's 8 games in 10 weekends, all of them derbies. You're going to have to rotate and give people a rest, especially in fact for them it's 8 games in 9 weekends, right? They only get 1 weekend off because they had the first weekend as their bye. So I think there's an element of that going on. They'll be happy to see Quinton Strange back, who's on the bench. That's good to see. This Fatuli Pia, not someone I'm aware of particularly. I'm a bit surprised to see him come in. But it does seem that we are seeing a lot of debutants getting a go, or a lot of young players getting a go in these games, which is great to see. I'm expecting this one. I'm expecting this one to again be close, because I can't see, because the Chiefs just aren't putting games away when they should do. So I think that the Crusaders aren't putting games away when they should do.
Steve, are you hopeful that the Crusaders are looking beyond you and resting a few guys, and the Highlanders can do their old dirty job here and either make it very close or even sneak a win?
Well, it's time to drop a good old stat that has been bandied about quite a bit by the Highlanders during the build-up to this matchup. That the last time that they played at Forsyth Bar Stadium, the Highlanders won. So let's just keep that back in the back of your mind. That was in 2018. I mean, that was part of that dynasty of the Crusaders, champion team. So, I mean, keep that in mind. It's under the roof. That's the best place to be for the Highlanders. Yeah, I mean, looking at that team, the changes they've made, and it has to give you a bit of confidence, doesn't it? I was disappointed to hear of the injury of Cullen Grace, because like Paul said, we've been talking him up for the last 2 weeks more and more about the impact he's having and how a greater player he's becoming. So disappointed he's missing, but also for the Highlanders' sake, that's pretty good. But yeah, just the ability in this team to make so many changes, is quite astounding. And I mean, if I was the coach, old Robertson of the Crusaders team, I just wouldn't move Will Jordan. I'm surprised they've gone and put him on the wing because he is just phenomenal at the moment. I mean, put Havili somewhere else because Will Jordan, I think, is in the form of his life, and he just needs to play more rugby in that sort of place and just continue doing what he's doing because he is just outstanding for the Crusaders, but for a future of New Zealand rugby as well. So, yeah, top quality throughout that team. It's a bit of a shame we're not going to see Josh Ioane for the rest of the season, which is a bit of a downer for the Highlanders. So Mitch Hunt's going to be getting used to that number 10 jumper. And after last weekend, Michael Collins, he takes that number 15 jumper. So, yeah, after the shambles there was Scott Gregory last weekend, it should be a little bit more safe at the back there. But, yeah, there won't be pouring rain that he had to deal with. So, yeah, a bit more confident, hopefully. Can repeat 2018. Never forget 27-15, the day that score was. So don't forget that this weekend when you're watching the game.
So yeah, so only you're talking about the last game. Look, out of the last 10 meetings, the Highlanders were won twice. Okay, now both of those were at home. So that's good.
Only one matters.
Sorry,
only one matters. That's the last one. You're only as good as your last match.
That was 6 games ago. Well, 5 games if you because obviously they had that cancelled one because of the Christchurch attacks last year. So yeah, so the look, yeah, it's I think that was a bit of a cheeky one. I feel a bit sad for Scott Gregory. He's not going to get another go this weekend. Probably a good weekend for him to actually skip actually, but I hope he gets a go against the Hurricanes or the Chiefs before the end of the season. Having watched him play for Northland, that wasn't a fair reflection of his skill then. So let's hope he gets another shot at it. But yeah, Michael Collins, yeah, he'll be a no mistakes guy from the back, but he's not going to break things open. But then again, the 2 wingers in Nariki, Puniavoi, Kandu, again, injuries really hurting these guys because Sam Gilbert, who's been playing for them on that right wing, that new guy in there, big guy, has gone to his knee and he's out for the season now. So it's yeah, injuries taking their toll on the Highlanders. Unfortunately, still no name on the Scudder either. Want to get as well, but I think yeah, he's going to be a Dan Carter character, isn't he? Has more impact off the field than he does on the field for this one. I think for this crowd, but yeah, no, I think the Highlanders are going to push the Crusaders all the way in this one. I'm looking forward to it.
At the moment, Milner Scudder is having a very big impact on Instagram, and that's about it, I think. The big thing there is, as you guys said, it's just amazing though that the Crusaders have made these changes. But if you look at it, it's probably the best tight 5 that they're putting out onto the field there. So that's not great news. And Mitchell Drummond just coming in for a start, that makes almost zero difference. Probably gives them a little bit more energy. And the big thing for me, I think some of those outside backs like Lester Fainganaku getting a go. I mean, he's going to be chomping at the bit to really show something. And when you're in a squad behind the guys that is All Blacks, obviously with Bridge and Sivu Reece, you know, you're not going to get a heck of a lot of chance to show what you can do. And you really got to put your, you know, not just your foot in there, but knock the door down. So expect something big. And obviously I agree with Steve there as well. It's strange seeing Will Jordan move to the wing because I mean I think he was absolutely superb, but it's probably a case of he can still play wing and maybe even outside centre where I really can probably only play him at 10 and he wasn't great at 10. So it's only really 15 for him. So I still think he's, you know, solid enough, but on that front, that poor Gregory bugger, cheapers, man, he got the shepherd's hook after that performance. It was nasty. But yeah, under the roof, I think I'm probably going to say this every week, but I expect the Crusaders to come right sometime there. I'm sorry, Cornflake, but I think things could get a bit flaky for you guys. Moving on to
actually just one point before we move on. David Havili. How many countries in the world would have him as their starting fullback, and he can't even get to start with the Crusaders? I mean, seriously, he's the second best fullback for the Crusaders, and yet I think most countries, I think every country in the world would have him in their extended squad at the very least, if not in a match day 23. I mean, he's a cracking player, really. really sad he doesn't get more opportunities at that level.
Well, I mean, honestly, we'll talk about it just now when we move on to the Australian one. But you look at the Australian teams coming out, and you look at some of the depth those guys have at the back, and exactly all across the park, and exactly what you're saying now there, Paul, is, you know, there's just a golf in class, and you can understand where the two teams and the two nations are in their position in world rugby at the moment. Just on that, I mean, having these guys on the bench and these guys struggling for positions, and then you get some guys there for the Reds and the Waratahs where you think you've pretty much got no clue where they came from. Anyway, let's quickly finish off the last New Zealand game before we move across the Tasman there. I don't know, Javi Maul, you wanna take us off first for this one? You expecting the Chiefs showed some life there last week? Was it just a dead cat bounce, or are the Chiefs back in running and capable of taking the Canes?
Oh, that's one. This is your wooden spoon decider already, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. Look, there's no finals in this competition, so you've got to finish top of the ladder. With both of these guys having lost their opening games, first 3 for the Chiefs and 2 for the Hurricanes. Look, it's already a wooden spoon game. So yeah, whatever. Basically, let's just enjoy the game for what it is, but don't think much more. It's not going to bear any relevance to the actual overall standings, really. Do I think the Chiefs are back? No, not yet. To be honest with you, look, I mean, they're very angry from the weekend because they fell asleep and were talking to the referee at the wrong time. It shows you a lack of leadership in that team for that quick line out try. So no, yes, they put in a more fighting performance. But I think we're going to see 2 out of 4 teams both showing a lot of grit, battling to the end. But at the end of the day, 2 out of 4 teams playing each other, unfortunately.
Steve, are we going to see one completed line out in that game?
Gee, that's a bit grim, isn't it? I mean, I've got on my notes for this game not talking about the line out or the second row. So I'm going to pass on that question because I feel like when we talk about the Chiefs, that's all we talk about is the line out in the second row. I should have put hospital boards on there as well because we seem to talk about that every single time we talk about the Chiefs. So I think hopefully we'll say that. We'll be diplomatic, shall we? I mean, the thing I'm looking forward to in this game is number 10s. I think that's where this game's going to be won and lost, is the number 10's ability to direct the team, take kicks, and kick territorially. That's going to be a big thing to me, and I think this is a big ask. Well, especially I think for the Hurricanes, if they're going to have Garden Bishop running things from that number 10 jumper yet again. If they go off Cruden for the Chiefs, that is a bit of a mismatch, you've got to say, between experience and capabilities and what you'd call from Cruden as opposed to Garden Bishop. But that could be an area I think this game is really going to be marked up on. So I expect a huge performance from Cruden if he does start there. Will they start? No, that's the thing. We haven't even seen this team yet. And will they change things? Do they keep it the same? That's a big, big question. So, yeah, a lot to go on for this. I think, like Paul says, it's a bit of it's sort of a dead rubber, but no one wants to finish last. Everyone will want to finish 4th if they can. If not, try to challenge our Highlanders for that 3rd spot that they'll be taking, hopefully, later on in the season. So, big match. Chiefs' point of view, I wanted to say I need to see more smarts out of one Damien Mckenzie. So, we tore into him a little bit on Paul's show at the end of the review at the start of the week. Just unimpactful, sideways runner, not smart with decision-making or where he wants to go. And if I'm going to look at anything and pinpoint what I'm going to watch mostly in this game, it's going to be where he's going, what he's doing, because he's not going to be in the frame for much more later on in this season, if there is a later on in this season or next season, whether the black jersey comes back out. How does he come in? Look what he's up against now. If he's going to play fullback, Will Jordan is just killing it. He's the name, and everyone else. Mackenzie's guy not even showing up. So there's a few key things to look out for here. That number 10 battle and tracking around Mckenzie. If anyone in New Zealand's got Sky, maybe vote for him so you can watch him on the player tracker and just see what he's up to because he needs to improve.
Yeah.
I was going to say, talking line out, Samasoni came on the pitch last weekend and he comes on and it's straight into a line out. He throws the ball in and no one jumps. You're like, yeah, okay, this is just it's just become a farce. Yeah, it's just lack of leadership for the Chiefs. But I think Cornflakes hit it on the head there. Is that we're going to? I mean, we talked about TJ Piranha before, haven't we? about him being overloaded with the captaincy, upsetting referees. Hopefully, he's had a week to calm down. But yeah, it's going to be a lot on of it on Garden Bishop making the right decisions. And yeah, he's up against a guy who is just going to put the Chiefs in the right part of the pitch the whole time. And the question is, can the Hurricanes get themselves out of their own half? Well, I think that's going to be one of the big differences between these two teams.
I think the big thing that was good for the Chiefs was Cruden really stepped up last week. To me, it was a little bit of a step up from him, and hopefully if he can keep it going, I mean, as you guys said, I think he's pretty much hands down capable of teaching Garden Bishop a lesson. And then the other thing is the 2 9s is going to be pretty good as well. I think both TJ and Brad Weber have probably had the leadership stress a little bit and struggling teams. So at the end, they probably try and do a little bit too much where everyone can, know the X factor that those guys can bring when they just let off the leash. So, I mean, except for skew lineouts and stuffing up the lineouts, I think we could see a lot of spark and a lot of chat from the 9s as well. I think that's a given for this weekend.
Yeah,
then just lost on
and different to the other weekends when they play, they're not going to get dominated up front either side because both front fives aren't particularly strong. So it'll be more even there. So it's not like the scrum halves going to have to play on the back foot, which we've seen Weber struggle with.
You saw exactly what I was going to say there, Paul. I was going to say the pack's going to cancel each other out, I reckon, with how bad they're going to be. I think if you want to look at an improver and an area where this game could be broken up, it's the Hurricanes midfield. If you want to look to their side of things, maybe if Garden Bishop can just catch and pass, leave Laumape to do a bit of damage. And I mean, up against him, Anton Leonard-Brown, we're picking on Chiefs players, but I like the guy. I love the guy. He's one of, I think, in form, the best number 12s or midfielders even in New Zealand. But he's so terribly out of form. So terribly poorly out of form. Paul's shaking his head, but I mean, he's a Conrad Smith sort of like player. Hard to tackle, hard to bring down. And yeah, just one of those really kind of, you look at him and go, oh, he's not going to be much trouble. But when he's on, he is just very, very elusive. And I think they've missed him in the midfield, and they could be up in trouble against that Canes midfield because they look pretty good. Well, okay, no, pretty good's bad. They looked a lot better 2 weeks ago than they did in the opening round. So they were improving, and they could cause trouble. So a few areas, I think, but it's not going to be in the forwards that this game's won or lost. Yeah,
Anton Brown's a 13, not a 12. That's the problem. They're playing 2 13s. Getting it, like you say, he's that Conrad Smith guy. He's that 13 guy. He's not.
It's kind of the same thing now, isn't it? They swap him around like it's the same job, but it's not.
It's not. And you say at 13 he is the best in the country. At 12, he's not, unfortunately.
I actually think a lot of the problems came in there is the All Blacks kind of enjoy the fact that he can be 12 and 13, and I think that's meddled him up a little bit. They like having him on the bench as the bench guy who can come on and play both sides. And as you guys said, I think to me he's almost trying a little bit too much at 12, where at 13 it's a little bit of an easier game for him to just attack the space. Just lastly on Damien Mckenzie, we've got a theme park in Cape Town which doesn't do too well. They only open up in holidays, and one of my mates on Twitter was like, Damien Mckenzie is like the theme park. Hella very exciting, but running at a loss. So it's not fantastic for him. He needs to step it up. 100% agree. Listen, guys, now on to our favorite topic. I know you love them. It's your neighbors are rolling things out, Joe. It's taken them 4 weeks to copy you guys. Steve, maybe just a quick summary. I know you've written a nice piece there on what we can expect in terms of the rules. I know, unlike you guys, they haven't just adapted. Basically, they've gone next door to the NRL lads and said, "Listen, give us some ideas to spice things up." So maybe just give us a few of the top things to look out for there.
The rule changes do come into a category of 2 or 3 little things, really. So it's copying Super Rugby Aotearoa. They've got the red card rule, so people can be replaced if they get a red card after 20 minutes. They've also got the extra time, or the super time, they call it, make it all flash and exciting in Australia.
Slight difference, though. Ours is 10 minutes. Theirs is 5 minutes either way.
It's golden point. It's the same as golden point in the NRL, which is 5-5 and first point, I think.
Yeah. The rest of them is pretty much kicking orientated. So the one that's not an attacking player carries ball into the end goal or knocks the ball on in the end goal plays restarted with a goal line dropout. So we say hello NRL rules yet again. And what else we got? If a kick enters the in-goal area and is forced by the defending team, there's also a goal line dropout. And then they've got the ones that we all would love to see, the 22-50 and the 50-22. Now, if you've watched any league or NRL, you know what that is. If you kick it from inside your own 50, bounces in and in the field of play and then goes out in the opponent's 22, you get the line-out throw. And the other way around, if you kick it from inside your own 22, goes into the opponent's 50 metres and bounces into touch, you get the line out there as well. So that's pretty much a copycat of the old school sort of 40-20s of league rules. And then they've also got the mark rule. So if you thump a big kick from pretty much 22 to 22, and you can't take a mark effectively. So you've got to go pretty much straight onto it from there. So mainly kicking rules and mainly a bit of copy, but a lot of NRL sort of action looking like it's going to come the way of Super Rugby AU, if that's what they're going to call it.
And one thing to bear in mind, they're not playing this weekend, but the Force have been playing Global Rapid Rugby rules. And that's 50-22 rule is a rule in Global Rapid Rugby. So they've played under some of these rules already, whereas the other teams haven't, which is going to be interesting to see.
Thanks, Paul. That's a nice little bit of insight there. To me, one of the interesting ones though is that where you have a go at the line and you held up, and then all of a sudden it's not going to be the 5-meter scrum. So I mean, it makes it almost a lot more of a risky play having that drive for the line, and I mean you're going to see TMO decisions being pretty crucial, and maybe even the on-field referee saying no try, give me a reason, and that kind of thing, and then all of a sudden it's held up and you're kicking away from your line. So that's pretty big, and even kicking dead or kicking in goal and then being dotted down and going for goal line drop out instead of a 22, that also gives you a little bit more attacking space. So in general, to me, which is kind of strange when you think about attacking rugby, it's going to be more about tactical kicking. So that's very interesting. I know the whole idea behind these rules is for an extra player to drop out and to cover the kick, to not give away that possession, and that in turn creates the space. But whether that really materializes is going to be something completely different. Paul, do you see a big impact in terms of these rules? And if so, do you think, as you've mentioned that they're the Force, but is there a particular team that strikes you that could benefit from this type of law?
Well, yeah, you're obviously clearly the Force because they've actually played it. The other ones, it's going to be interesting. You think that it's going to reinforce the teams that have got good coaching, i.e. the Brumbies. And it's going to penalise the teams with bad coaching. Yes, Reds, we're looking at you. So it's that's, I think, the more cohesive or the more sort of mature or settled kind of teams should come out of this early. But yeah, it's going to come down to, and the other thing also is perhaps this is a good one for the Rebels, because look, Matt Tamua, experienced head at 10, whereas you're looking at the Brumbies, the Waratahs got very inexperienced 10s. So will that cause a problem for them? You've got and James O'Connor, not really a 10 as far as I'm concerned normally. So again, tactical kicking, not his big strength there for the Reds. So maybe it will be the Rebels that come out on top with that because they've got Matt Tamura in there with more experience. We'll have to wait and see. It's really hard this first weekend or the first to have a gauge for any of these teams. To be honest, they've been under lockdown for so long. They've all lost players, or they seem to have lost players to Europe already. So you're kind of wondering who knows what's going to happen this first weekend. It's all a bit of a lottery, I think.
Paul mentioned it there. I was actually looking at this, and I thought the 9-10, those are probably going to be the guys who are going to be important here. And I thought, okay, James O'Connor is one of the more experienced lads, even though he's probably not an out-and-out 10. But somehow I just don't see O'Connor as the guy who's been spending the last 2 months reading up on laws and thinking about strategy. So I'm not exactly convinced. Cornflake, your thoughts on how teams will adapt to the new rules?
Well, you'd hope they've been practicing and training it, wouldn't you? They've had a long time to do it, and they should be well and truly prepared. I'm not sold on Matt Tamura. I see Paul's quite up on Matt Tamura getting the experience here, but he's not a 10 either for mine. He's not a 10. He's certainly an inside centre. He's great at 12, but just looks a bit lost. When he's running at 10, it's like he needs someone else to guide his ship, and he's the perfect, side man to that ship's captain. He just doesn't quite have that fully confidence, it seems, in what he's going to do, that's the right decisions to make. So I like him more as a standoff sort of guy to support on in behind. But yeah, these teams, I think, like Paul says, a lot has changed, but I think we're going to see fairly similar sort of things. What I'm most interested to see is what the Force can do. Sadly, we're not going to see them this weekend, but I think that's going to be interesting how they do come into this competition. And it's cool how they've kind of signed up these old Force players, like Kyle Goldwyn's gone back to them as well. So it's kind of, bringing back the old band, as it were, and kind of saying, you missed the chance to stick it to Australian rugby the first time. Let's do it now and see if they can actually do it. So that's going to be really, really cool to see if they can actually step it up. But I think for mine, there's one team that should look quite a lot better than the rest, and there's going to be quite a few struggles through the rest of them. Like you said at the start, all this inexperience is just flowing on out in these teams that they've named. But the contrast to that is that this is the time to do it, because you're not going to get grilled by the media saying, oh, Reds were smashed by 80 points against the Crusaders or things like that. It is Australia on Australia, so media will still attack the weak and they're losing, but you're only losing to another Australian team. So they can still look at the positive that is Australian team won as well. So it's not all going to be doom and gloom for the Australian media against Australians or South Africans and that sort of thing, which they always do bring up that haven't won in New Zealand since 1926 and things like that. So there's a lot they've got to positive look forward. Now's the time to actually breed those guys and bring them through, give them some experience and see what they're made of, when you're probably not going to get beat up so much about it.
There's also a thing here is that the Force are the only team that have actually got paid properly and aren't arguing over money, right? That's because Twiggy is very, very rich and has said, right, yep, I'm guaranteeing all your contracts, no worries, boys. Whereas, the Rebels were talking about not even getting on the airplane and flying to Canberra for their game. Also, next weekend they know they're not going home; they're having to shift up off to somewhere else to play next weekend because of coronavirus issues in Melbourne. So there's an awful lot of disruption behind the scenes. You don't know which of the Reds lost 3 players because they wouldn't take pay cuts. Which of these squads are basically fractured and in a mess, and which of these squads have managed to hold together? That it's all guesswork at the moment, looking from the outside, which I think is going to be the biggest thing here, rather than necessarily the laws or any of this kind of issues. Who has taken the pay cut well, who hasn't? It's going to be a big thing.
But to me, the big thing is, I mentioned it earlier, is just the difference in depth. And I've got the Brumbies team open. If you look at the spine, if you want, or even just your tactical kickers, Mac Hansen is the fullback and Noah Lelio is the fly off. It's for a Brumbies team that's expected to be the team to beat. I don't know how great that is. As we said, on the Reds, we've got James O'Connor. Not even sure at the moment who's at fullback for them. The Reds have got Bryce Hegarty at fullback again. Okay, decent player, exciting, but not really going to tactically dominate. The Waratahs have got a winger with Jack Maddox playing at fullback, and Will Harrison, a youngster, at 10, and Mitch Short at 9. So I don't know. To me, it's strange looking at these teams and not seeing your Leo Lefanos and your Bernard Foley's, regardless of the limitations they had as players. But just looking at these guys, you think to yourself, you don't know who's the Wallaby number 10 there, and maybe actually the Rebels, as you guys said, having Matt Tamua. I know Steve probably not rating him the best as 10. I still think he's a decent tactical player. And having Dale Alepeti at fullback again, he's probably not going to set the world alight, but he's a solid 15. So to me, it's almost the case of the Brumbies forwards and the Rebels backs. Having those three Wallabies there in the front row for the Brumbies are going to be crucial. And then obviously Bill Meeks and those kind of guys, Brad Hodge for the Rebels. You can see why they're the favourites there. And by the way, you talked about the coaching, but isn't Brad Thorne a guy who also had a little bit of time in league? So hopefully he can take some of that knowledge. Okay,
famously doesn't deal well with anybody who is his way or the highway, isn't it? Let's be honest. And there's been quite a few players thrown out on the highway. along the way there. So, but if you want to get into the teams, I mean, that Rebels one, which we started because it's the Reds Waratahs on Friday. That Reds one's interesting because they've got James O'Connor, and you mentioned Bryce Hegarty. They've also got Hamish Stewart at 12, who's also a sort of a 10-15. So they've got 3 tactical kickers there, or 3 fly halves basically. So you've got to actually in a kicking duel, they should have it where it's needed. The problem is up front, is having lost. Was it not Rodder? It was Rodder.
Rodder, yeah.
So and again, you look at the bench and go, "Ooh, yeah, okay." There's there's not many names that you know, and with 2 guys making their debut on there. Yeah, I mean, there's JP Smith, Maffey. So they got some front row replacements, but apart from that, you're looking at that bench and going, "Oh, let's hope we're up at 60 minutes. Otherwise, we're in trouble."
They've got some South African power in there, some South African beef, so it's all good.
Whereas you then go over to the Tars and Will Harrison. Yeah, he's a young guy, but I was impressed with Will Harrison prior to this. I thought he was doing pretty well, and I'm glad they've stuck with him. Marky Mark, the guy with that really long name on the wing, it's good to see him back from injury as well. And actually,
have a go there. Have a go at the name.
Nawa Kwani Tasuwazi. Something along those lines. I'm sorry, folks, but look, it's the I just can't. This is the Tars are a side that look they've got the names. They've got Rob Simmons. They've got Hannigan. They've got Hooper. They've got Wallabies in that pack. They've got you say Jack Maddox, Alex Newsom has been in a while. They've got Jack Dempsey and people to come off the bench. They're much more the experienced side against the Reds' very young side. But the problem for the Tars is that they're so often they look like less than some of the parts.
No, definitely there's, but I mean, even in past times when the Waratahs have had Foley's and Beals and Falaus, it's almost been a case of what happens off field or in their heads, and emotionally it's a case of whether the Waratahs pitch up or not. I mean, it's pretty much the same team, and Kepu and those kind of guys who would go to the final, and the same team would finish last in Super Rugby. It's they one of those, they almost sorry, Johnny, more the blues of Australian rugby. There, you never really know why they can't produce it on the pitch. Listen, guys, just quickly, let's do predictions for the 2 Aussie games, and then we'll go back to the New Zealand ones. You can add a sentence or whatever, a comment with regard to the games as well. Reds, Waratahs, what do you expect?
Go for it, Paul.
I've gone Tars by 3 because of that experience, and because I'm not sure what's with the disunity of the Reds with the players leaving, I'm not sure where the heads are going to be at.
Oh, good stuff. I like that. I'm going completely opposite on that one because the Reds play a forward game. They play a hard game, don't they? I think you talk about off the bench, that forward pack is going to be not strengthened, but I think off the bench they are stronger in the pack than the Waratahs, and the Waratahs are just headless chickens. Just run them around, put their tops up over their head, and they'll play just as well like that because they just have no direction whatsoever. And nothing's going to change at all. I'm going Reds by 2.
There we go. And Taniela Tupou, Tongan Thor there to get us a try, I'm sure. Got on to Brumbies, Rebels, Cornflake.
Oh, well, this is the team I was talking about. As I expect to be head and shoulders above the rest as the Brumbies. They should just dominate games like they did before the stoppage of the season. So I'm expecting them to carry that on. The Rebels they are probably the Blues of Super Rugby, to be fair. Just disappointment. I mean, how many times have we said the Rebels this time they've got these seasons sorted? I'm past giving the Rebels another chance, and I'm Brumbies by 11. Need to write this down so I can make it picks. Yep.
Wow.
Down to the Rebels.
The Brumbies. Yeah, it's their tournament. It's their tournament to lose. Let's be blunt. They're the best coached team. Loli Aseo, as you say, is young, inexperienced, but he was playing well prior to this. They'll miss Banks and the experience he brings at 15, who's injured at the moment, but hopefully he'll come back. The Rebels also, the fact that they've had to pack 2 sets of clothes because they're spending the next week up on the Gold Coast or somewhere silly. I've got no idea where they're going, to be honest with you, but they're going to play somewhere else. They're not going home, all that uncertainty and stuff. So, yeah, I've gone Brumbies by 5.
Okay, I just in terms of what we've heard from the betting guys at the moment, there's been loads of money for the Reds on the minus. In case you're wondering, it's moved out from -3 and -4 to I think it's about -8.5 at the moment. So everybody and his dogs on the Reds there, which is always dangerous as soon as you put a lot of funds on an Aussie team. And then on the Brumbies game. Yeah, everyone's it's Brumbies are tournament favourites, so you probably expect them to get the job done. Personally, I'm on the Australian games. It's that 1-10 or 1-12 margin for the home team that I'm pretty much going to be banking on throughout and expecting a little bit of the same as the New Zealand ones, where it's going to be tightly fought, except probably not at the same standard. On to the New Zealand predictions there, guys. First game, Crusaders.
I guess just quickly on that one, I expect that game between the Brumbies and Rebels will actually be the final of this competition. Anyway, I think we'll see. It's they're the top 2 teams by a country mile. The Highlanders Crusaders, yeah, definitely Crusaders. But I'm going by only 3 because I say most they let teams come back into it. So I'll probably take a bit of a lead. Highlanders will come back into it, and it'll be just a win by a score.
I think we might as well skip Steve there. It's going to be pretty much the same. I think he's going to say he's going to say Hart is wanting to say Highlanders. The mind says Crusaders. He's going to give a narrow win to the Crusaders.
You pretty much nailed it. Yeah, I mean, I do these predictions earlier in the week before I see the teams, and it's like you see the teams. Sometimes you think, "Yep, nailed it. Not going to change that." Other times you look at the teams that go, "Oh, you look at that Crusaders team and go, I think they've weakened it a touch," and that gives confidence to the team they're up against as well. And the Highlanders are a team you don't want to give confidence to because they don't lack any of that as they are. So it's tough, but I'm going to stick with my original pick, which was the Crusaders by 5.
Okay, there we go. Let's go straight on to the Chiefs Hurricanes. I know you guys have probably got a little bit less excitement in this one. Which way are you going to
go? Chiefs by 5.
Ooh. Really?
So,
that's quite interesting.
Really, I just as you say, I just think that we're going to see Cruden just pin the Hurricanes back into their own half and ask them to run it out, and I just don't think they'll do it. Put bluntly.
Sweet, that's quite good. We're really crashing on opposite paths here. We're going the Hurricanes on this side of things. Yep, I give you that. The team battle is all yours, but I think the crashing through the guts is going to be exactly what the Hurricanes need. More X factor in that midfield area, especially, is where I think they're going to really nail it. And just that's my hunch. Really, Hurricanes by 4. They're going to get the job done.
Okay, from my point of view, I'm going Crusaders by 14 under the roof. They're going to put on an exhibition there in the second half, and. In the Chiefs one, it's flip a coin. I think I'm going to see exactly the same kind of game that we've seen. It's going to be one of the teams pushing for a try right at the end, and it's just going to be a case of whether they get it or not. So it's going to be home side there, Chiefs by 2. And don't put any money on a driving maul try in that game because they first have to catch the line out to be able to get over for 1. So that's where we're leaving it. Cheers, gents. Thanks for joining me again. And hopefully next week I can finally tell you guys I got one spot on.
But look, again, it's going to be a wet game on Sunday. So look, I've got.
Oh, it's okay. What now? Is this going to be wet or not?
Yeah.
At the moment it's at the moment the weather forecast has 76% chance of rain at kickoff. So there you go. It's going to be wet.
I can tell you one thing: it'll be wet in Dunedin, but it won't matter. And that's the only thing that matters.
In Hamilton, it will.
Perfect.
Well, I think as a default position, the chances are usually quite good that Hamilton's going to be slightly wet. I mean that'll probably be like my default call for Hamilton. Somehow it just always seems to be a bit wet.
We've been dry kind of all week, and then it's just raining on Sunday. So anyway, here's what it is.
Okay. Cheers, James. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.